Sile Parker in the sound room. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil mursaleen. Sayyidina wa Mawlana Muhammad wa ala alihi wa ashabi ajma'in. Honorable guest, Reverend Munther Isaac, honorable members of the clergy. On my right-hand side, we also have the Honorable Sheikh Riyad Fattar, the President of the Muslim Judicial Council, Maulana Abdul Khalik Ali, the President of the United Ulama Council of South Africa, and various members of the clergy and the ulama and respected guests. And I also have a special guest here, Brother Derek from Bethlehem near Bloemfontein. Welcome to each and everyone, and to also our viewers on Facebook and YouTube and the social media. I greet you all with the wonderful Islamic universal greetings of peace, love, and mercy. The greetings of the Holy Prophet Moses, the greetings of the Holy Prophet Jesus Christ, and the greetings of the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon them all. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah, it gives me great pleasure to welcome each and everyone here to this very auspicious gathering here in Masjidul Quds, Gatesville, Cape Town, South Africa. Welcome. We have a very special guest and a very special program. And I must say to the Reverend Munther Isaac, I personally am your fan. I really admire your courageous stand, your beautiful universal sermon and message you send out on your holy day of Christmas from the church in Bethlehem, with the little doll being put under the rubble, representing the children and the innocent martyrs that died in Gaza, in Palestine, with the raining down of missiles and bombs from a barbarous and an evil apartheid regime's army. But the people of Palestine are still standing, still fighting, and inshallah our prayers are that victory will be there soon. Inshallah, Ameen. Without further ado, before we introduce our honorable guest, I would like to call upon our honorable brother, Dr. Suleiman, to kindly say a few words before we start, inshallah.
Jazakallah, Sheikh. I'm not going to be long. I just want to honor and show respect for Reverend Munther Isaac. You know, they always say spirituality is very powerful. The first time we saw your videos, I said, I wish I could have this man in South Africa. I should have asked for a few more things that day. And we really appreciate you coming out. The Islamic concept is very clear, that when you see an evil action, stop it with your hand, or speak out against it, or at least hate it in your heart. You have been admirable speaking out. You've motivated humanity, not only the Muslim world or the Christian world. And this is what tonight is all about. It's about humanity. You know, they say it's a horrible thing to say, but never waste a disaster. This disaster has brought people from different faiths, religion, no faith, spirituality together. And we are so grateful to have you in this mosque, to have you from Bethlehem speak in this mosque in Cape Town. A special thanks to the committee of the mosque, Satar Parker, Chairman Muhammad Abdullah, Imam Alexandra, and all of you who made it so easy for us to come here. And thank you to all the people who've come here tonight and all who are going to be listening live on radio and TV and YouTube and whatever. Thank you very much. And I'd really like to honor this man. He's an outstanding example what we as human beings should follow. All religions teach the same values of humanity, of justice, of fair play, of honesty, of integrity, and standing up for the oppressed and for those who've been, unjustly dealt with. And it takes a great man, great courage to speak out so openly in the land where they're being attacked from. That's a huge quality of a great man. Reverend, we appreciate your presence in South Africa. May God be with you, with your church, with your flock, and the people of Palestine. May you be blessed. Thank you. And I'll call Reverend Edwin Harrison to please do the introduction to you. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. Allahu Akbar. It is my great privilege and an honor to introduce Reverend Munther Isaac to you this evening. Before I do that, however, I want to just acknowledge the presence of Muhannad Al-Kaisi, if you can just stand, also from Palestine, who is with us this week, and also Sister Lucy Talgier at the back. She's also with us from Palestine. And then Reverend Rene August, also at the back there. She was on the Bethlehem pilgrimage last year. She was there when Reverend Munther preached that sermon that everyone talks about. So it's wonderful to be here and to welcome this delegation. There's a bigger delegation. There's some of them are in Johannesburg, and they will fly to Port Elizabeth, Gqeberha tomorrow. And then from there, they will also go to Johannesburg, where the anti-apartheid conference will take place from 10 to 12 May. Please keep that conference in your prayers. Reverend Munther Isaac is a minister within the Lutheran tradition. I'm not sure if that means anything to you, but it's part of the Lutheran Church, and he's part of the Lutheran Church in Bethlehem. He is, of course, an outstanding theologian. He was first a civil engineer, but then he moved to theology and has since written his Ph.D. on topics that he will talk about tonight in theology. He is also part of, you must have heard of Kairos, Palestine. So we in South Africa, we launched the Kairos document in 1985. Next year we'll commemorate the 40th anniversary of Kairos Southern Africa or South Africa. But in 2009, some of us went to Bethlehem to launch Kairos Palestine. And since then, we have been working very closely with them and encourage them in the struggle for the rights of the Palestinian people. All Palestinian people. We don't only fight for Christian Palestinians, we fight for all Palestinian people. That's important because, as you rightly said, it is about humanity. It is about humanity. So I present to you Dr. Munther Isaac.
I don't know how to follow all of this. Good evening. Assalamu alaikum. What an honor to be here with you. Thank you for this invitation. Thank you for opening your mosque to me, Sheikh Abdul Rahman, Sheikh Muhammad, all the honorable guests here. Thank you, Imtiaz, for making this connection. And many people encouraged me to get in touch with you, knowing that I'm coming to South Africa. And I told my good friend Edwin, please make sure there is room to meet our Muslim siblings in South Africa. It is really my honor to be with you here. And part of the reason we're here is to say thank you to South Africa for your support, for your prayers, for your solidarity. I bring you greetings from Palestine, from Palestine, precisely from Bethlehem, from our community. And as you said, tragically, this genocide brought so many of us together. Please allow me to begin my talk by reciting a Quranic verse. يا أيها الناس إنا خلقناكم من ذكر وأنثى وجعلناكم شعوبا وقبائل لتعارفوا إن أكرمكم عند الله أتقاكم إن الله عليم خبير. O people, we created you from a male and a female, and we made you races and tribes, so that you may come to know one another. The best among you before Allah is the most righteous. Allah is knowing and aware. It is indeed special to me to be here with you, Interfaith is something that is very, very dear to me. And maybe just allow me to give a personal story. As was already mentioned, I studied civil engineering. And this was during the days of the Second Intifada. These were very difficult days. And all I knew is that I wanted to do something for my people. I wanted to help. And for some reason, God led me into studying theology. This is the only answer I got back then. So I decided, after I finished civil engineering, to go and study theology. Upon knowing this, my professors were a bit distressed. They thought, what did we do to him to make him leave engineering and go to theology? Some thought I was becoming a monk. And one of them called me to his office. He's actually a Christian, and he told me, don't waste your life. Continue in your engineering career. And I said, no, thank you, I feel called to do this. And in the same day, another professor, a Muslim, called me. And he said, I heard you're going to theology. I said, yes, everyone knows now. And he said, good for you. Pursue this, but please come back and help Christians stay in Palestine. And I always say that part of my calling in life came from a Muslim. And this symbolizes the unity we have in Palestine as Christians and Muslims. Indeed, I grew up with strong respect to Muslims and Islam, and I think this is a Palestinian thing. We live together. People in the West always ask me, how are you, managing with Muslims? I say we have 1,400 years of experience of living together. I think by now we know how to be good neighbors to one another. That's the word I always use. We're neighbors. And so we're accustomed to that. And I say this as a proud Christian and follower of Christ. It is a very Christian thing to be a good neighbor. The essence of Christianity, according to the teachings of Jesus, love God with all your heart or your might or your soul, and love your neighbor as yourself. So to me, this is not just a very Palestinian thing, but a very Christian thing. And I pursue this all of my life. In Palestine, I'm one of the co-founders of the Academic Alliance for Interfaith in Palestine. We bring theology students and Sharia students together for engagement, for discussion, for dialogue. This is not something very common in Palestine, by the way. And there are these invisible barriers among many, but we feel the need to do this more and more. And this is important because many, in what I call the empire, want to portray us as if we are in enmity, as if we're enemies, but we're not. All the time when the media comes to talk to me, they ask, are you persecuted by Muslims? And behind that is not just an assumption, behind that is an intention. It serves them to portray us as if we are enemies. And we need to be careful. We need to be wary of these questions. All the time they want to portray as if Christians are leaving Palestine because of religious tensions with their Muslim neighbors. No, we're leaving Palestine because of an ugly apartheid occupation that is making life difficult for everyone. An oppression that does not differentiate between anybody. And sadly, we've learned this in the worst way in this war in Gaza. Everybody is a target. Mosques and churches were targeted, just like hospitals, schools, university. Everybody was targeted. We've had Palestinian Christian women killed by snipers inside the church campus where they are taking refuge. Nobody is safe. No place is safe. And so we're victims of this occupation, like all Palestinians. And I'm here because of Gaza. And we cannot stop talking about what's happening in Gaza. It's a horrible situation. It's horrific. The stories we're hearing from Gaza are horror stories. People dying in all sorts of ways now, being killed in all sorts of ways. We've had a 16-year-old young teenager who was killed on her way between Gaza and Rafah. Because if you want to escape Gaza to Rafah, they make you walk. And in 2 hours, with fragile bodies and dehydration and hot weather, she died because of this. People are dying in the most horrific ways. They tell us horror stories of dead bodies in the streets, of animals. I mean, it's really horrific. And the sad thing about all of this is that it's happening under the watch of the world. This is not a genocide in which the horrors of the genocide will be discovered later. And people will be shocked and they claim, oh, we wish we knew. No, you knew everything. You saw everything. The heroic people of Gaza sacrificed everything to broadcast it live to the world. They're broadcasting their own genocide. In fact, those committing the genocide are proud about it and filming it in their own social media. It's horrible to watch. It's a really horrible situation. And it's at the same time, it's a shameful display of the world, especially the Western world, is racism and apathy. Because how else do you explain 7 months of a genocide? And not only that, it seems it's going on. We're just reading the news that there began the operation in Rafah. This could lead to tragic results. It's a shameful display of racism, of apathy. It's a shameful display of the logic of might, of the empire. Israel is an expression of empire today. We have to realize that. And in my Christmas sermon, I said, Gaza has become the moral compass of the world. I truly believe this. Because everything is there to see. Truth is evident. No one can claim we did not know. No one can claim we didn't understand the extent of it. Everyone knows what's happening. And this is why I keep saying Gaza has become the moral compass of the world, because it has divided our world. And maybe this is a good thing. We need to know where people stand. Do you stand with the genocide or do you stand with humanity? And this is not about politics. This is not about politics. This is about the human suffering in Gaza that continues to go on and on. So when I say Gaza is the moral compass, because it truly divided our world, and we need to know where do you stand. And I've been challenging church leaders. And by the way, the problem is not just in the church, but I feel obligated to call out my own tradition. That's why I keep calling out the church. Where do you stand? Where were you when Gaza was going through a genocide? We read your statement condemning October 7th. We're hearing nothing about what followed after October 7th. So we need to call out people. We need to understand where people stand. And history should not and will not be merciful to those who were complicit in this genocide. And I see many of them now trying to, as if, wash the blood from their hands. They make statements that they are concerned about the level of innocent people killed in Gaza. Well, you gave them the weapons. What do you expect? Now you're telling me you're concerned? You came a week after October 7th, one after the other, to give the green light, to give the political cover, and in some cases the theological cover for this genocide. And now you claim you are concerned? We told you what was coming. We've been speaking against this war from the very beginning, writing, pleading. And when we said as early as end of October, early November in our statements, some of it are actually combined statements between Palestinian Christian and South African church leaders. When we said this is the genocide, people criticized us. It's like, why are you magnifying things? This is self-defense. We saw what was happening. We saw this coming. Sadly, people didn't listen. The same way people didn't listen when we said we saw this coming before October 7th. For as I said, Gaza has been hell on earth before October 7th. 16, 17 years of siege, 76 years of occupation, of apartheid, of ethnic cleansing. What do you expect will happen? The current status quo is not sustainable. We've been saying it for years, but sadly no one listens. This is what I mean by racism, because they don't look at us as equal. This is the problem here. So I repeat, Gaza has become the moral compass of the world. Where do you stand? And in the same way that it holds people accountable, and history will hold them accountable. History will record all of this. Gaza has brought so many of us from different faith traditions around the world together. And we've gained so many friends who, in our joint humanity, in our shared humanity, we came together to say, no, not in our name. No, this is evil. This must stop. We've seen people of different faith in mosques, in synagogues, in churches, in the streets from all faith traditions come and say and unite, no. The streets are so loud. The problem is with the decision maker. That doesn't mean we should stop, but we should be even louder and louder. And when I say this, and when I plead as a man of faith, please understand me. What is happening in Palestine today and in Gaza is not a religious conflict. There are so many people to portray it as a religious conflict, as if Jews and Muslims exist in the same land and they can't get along. This is false. This is not the problem. Colonialism is the problem. Our problem is not with the Jews. Our problem is with the exclusive ideology of Zionism. We should always emphasize that. It's not a religious conflict. And that's why many always like to portray us as Palestinian Christians as if we are caught in between. I wonder if you've heard this term. And I keep saying, we're not caught in between. We're part of the Palestinian people. The occupation impacts every one of us in the same way it impacts every Palestinian. We're not as if in between of a religious conflict that we had nothing to do with. We need to ask, why is this idea always portrayed in the Western media? Again, it serves a certain ideology. And we've seen it in full display in this war, describing it as a war between good and evil, with good being the Judeo-Christian tradition, evil being Arab Muslims. This is wrong. We should fight this. It's dehumanizing of many people around the world. It's so painful to see the dehumanization of the people of Gaza, indeed of all Palestinians, that has been happening for years and years and years. And actually, to be honest, this is one of the reasons that always encouraged me to speak more and more. It's wrong, these stereotypes that we see around the world. Many were surprised to see a Christian pastor speak about Gaza. Again, this feeds into the assumption as if Palestinian Christians, or as if all Christians should support Israel. No, why? This is about justice. This is about righteousness. People should not be surprised that Palestinian Christians exist. It should be a surprise if we did not exist. Christianity started in Bethlehem, in Jerusalem. Many think it started in Texas. Jesus was one of us. Jesus was born literally 5 minutes from where I preach every Sunday. And again, to portray Palestinian Christians as if we're a distinct community, it's not just misleading. It's, we're Arabs. This is our identity. And in the same way, as I said, we were impacted by everything happening to all Palestinians. The Nakba was so harsh on us as Palestinians, and of course, including Palestinian Christians. The majority of Palestinian Christians today live in exile. We're displaced. They are even denied the right to return to their homes, not land, but homes. I always say, when we as Palestinians say this is our land, I'm not making a political statement. I'm talking about land and farms we've owned, inherited, took care of for generations. To us, this is not a political game or a claim of possession from religious texts. This is our history. This is our identity. We are rooted in the land of Palestine. But I will continue to repeat, it serves the colonial narrative to portray the conflict as a religious one. It's part of an inherent superiority and racism in the West. Racism that tragically now Arabs and Muslims are the target of. And many times, believe me, we as Palestinian Christians and Middle Eastern Christians are the target of that very same racism. So I emphasize this is not a religious conflict. And when I call for people of faith from all over the world to join us in our efforts, I'm not claiming this as a Christian cause or an Islamic cause or a Jewish cause. The last thing we need is to make it a religious conflict. For me as a Christian, the last thing I need is another Crusaders. But it is a moral cause. It is an ethical cause. It is a human cause. Because people of faith must be characterized by justice above anything, by compassion, by mercy. It is a just cause, and that's why we're calling people from all faith to join us in this cause. As a Christian and as a follower of Jesus, I'm always challenged by a story, a parable Jesus said. Jesus said many parables. That was his favorite mean of teaching. He would tell stories. And one of the story explains what happens in the day of the judgment, Yawm al-Din, Daynuna. And he said there will be people to the right and people to the left. And those on one side would say, well, we preach your name, we were your followers. And he says, go away from me, I don't know you. And they will be surprised. And he said, because I was hungry and you did not feed me. I was thirsty, you did not give me water. I was a stranger and you did not give me shelter. I was a prisoner and you did not visit me. And then he looks to the other people and say, come to me. And he said, because I was hungry and you fed me. I was thirsty and you gave me water. And they say, when did we do so? And he said, whatever you have done to the least of these, you have done to me. Whatever you have done to the least of these, you have done to me. This is an important teaching of Jesus. And to be honest and transparent, this is a teaching that many Christians ignore. Because we focus on doctrinal issues. But here Jesus challenges us and says, in the judgment day, what distinguishes people, the way I will separate people is how you have done to the least of these, because you have done it to me. And this passage challenged me. Because Jesus here says, you must see me in every victim of injustice, every person suffering. And this is one of the stories behind that inspired me to place Jesus under the rubble. Because in a time when the whole world dehumanized, justified, and rationalized the killing of Palestinian children in Gaza, Jesus told us, you must see my image in every child killed under the rubble in Gaza. This is why we do this. You can't claim to be a person of faith or a follower of Jesus and not be compassionate about victims of injustice and not be compassionate about the least of these as Jesus described them. And again, this is how Jesus separates people on Judgment Day. This is what he said. So for me as a Palestinian pastor, being engaged in the Palestinian cause comes first from my faith as a follower of Jesus. I can't claim to follow Jesus and not be concerned for justice and not be concerned for the innocent being killed in Gaza, especially when the world continues to dehumanize them and seems to be okay with their killing in the most brutal ways. So if I say Gaza is the moral compass, I think Palestine in its justice and its righteousness as a cause is indeed a gauge for our humanity. And the silence on the acceptance of the world with the colonization of Palestine for the last 76 years is shameful. And to see people continue to justify it, give it religious justification, it's what breaks my heart. To see colonization continue to be justified in such a manner is what breaks my heart. And I know that all over the world today, Palestine has become a polarizing topic. We see what's happening in American universities. It's actually good. We need to know where you stand. We salute them. And even though some will look at it as a polarizing topic, to me, and this might sound strange, I have no doubt where God stands. It's not because we are inherently righteous or superior as Palestinians. It's not because of our religion or nationality or anything in us. But because God, the way I understand the Bible, always sides with the oppressed, with the marginalized, with the poor. Many Christians are actually surprised when I tell them God takes sides. They say, no, God is neutral, God is for all. No, read the Bible. God takes sides with the oppressed, with the marginalized. In the Christmas story, he was born among the occupied. His family became refugees. His family survived a massacre. This is in the gospel, this is in the Bible. And they escaped out of all places to Egypt, seeking refuge there. The same way we look at Palestinians today seeking refuge in Egypt, or trying to. This is God's solidarity with the oppressed. This is why I kept saying, if Jesus were to be born today, he would be born under the rubble in Gaza. In solidarity with the marginalized, in solidarity with the oppressed, in solidarity with those suffering and being killed in the most horrific ways, as if to say, I stand with you. This is the God I encounter. And this is why I keep saying all of these things. It's a just cause. And our God is the God of justice. And here is my point, because if God is in solidarity with the oppressed, God's solidarity must become our solidarity as people of faith. As such, neutrality is not an option. Neutrality is actually siding with the oppressed. You're telling neutrality is siding with the oppressor. You're telling the oppressor it's okay to continue what you're doing because I don't care, or God doesn't care. But that's why I can't accept this. Neutrality only serves to empower the oppressor. And by the way, many who are silent today will show up after the genocide with acts of charity. And I ask, where were you during the genocide? You were silent. And now you want to come across as righteous, as good. Neutrality is not an option. And when there is a genocide that has been now normalized in our world, it's urgent more than ever that we should speak. Neutrality is not an option. And as I said, this genocide has shown to us in full display the hypocrisy and racism of the Western world. And I will continue to say to all European friends, I never ever want you to lecture us on human rights and in the international law anymore. It seems to me it doesn't apply on us. You lost all your credibility. That's why I said, will you recover? Between us, many diplomats and leaders behind closed doors tell me, we will never recover. They know it. They know it. Their conscience is still alive. And I must say a word to all of us here. Despair is not an option. It's been 7 months, I know. And many ask me, aren't you tired? It's nothing compared to the sumud, to the resistance and resilience of the people of Gaza. We owe it to them. We can't be silent. We cannot stop talking about Gaza. Despair and apathy and growing numb cannot be an option, because it will leave a stain on our humanity. If I look at the channel today on the TV and I see children pulled from under the rubble in Gaza and say, well, we're used to it, then there's something wrong with humanity. I can't accept it. I don't want to grow numb. And I know it hurts, but we cannot turn the channel. We cannot be silent. That's why I say it's forbidden for us to stop talking about Gaza and stop advocating for a ceasefire. We owe it to them. We owe it to our faith. If we truly believe in a just God, the God of goodness and righteousness, imagine if our message is we give in to despair, nothing will change. No, I refuse to give in to despair. Motivated by our faith in God and God of justice, we must continue on. And believe me, we will recover. We as Palestinians will recover. Will those who were complicit in this genocide ever recover? And will we allow them to get away with it? So thank you again for having me here. Thank you for your solidarity, for your passion, for everything you're doing. Thank you to South Africa. I think Palestine and South Africa are now united in many, many ways. We were always united. You know, as a child, I still remember the visit of Archbishop Tutu to my hometown in Beit Sahour. And now I think we're even more united in stronger ways. You see, victims of colonialism and apartheid have the gift of empathy. And I thank you for sharing this gift of empathy with us, sharing your solidarity with us. Those who lived under apartheid and colonialism understand our pain and suffering. So we're joined in very, very deep and profound ways. I've described my trip to South Africa as my own personal pilgrimage. People come to Palestine for pilgrimage. They see places, they see stones, old buildings. To me, my personal pilgrimage is to be in places of suffering, of solidarity, of unity, of people who are searching for God. This is where God is encountered. So thank you from the bottom of my heart, and I invite you, hopefully one day we meet in a free Palestine. Amen. Thank you.
Takbir. Allahu Akbar walillahi alhamd. Shukran kathir. And thank you very much to the Honorable Reverend for a very moving sermon, basically, that he gave here this evening, really moving us and proving to us the similarity in the teachings of Islam and Christianity, that we are not enemies, we are indeed brothers. For the very cornerstone that Jesus Christ laid firmly down is the teaching of love. And the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, also taught us, Khayrun nas anfa'ahum linnas, that the best amongst humanity is he who is most beneficial to the members of humanity. La tadkhulul jannata hatta tu'minu. You will never enter the kingdom of God Almighty, paradise, unless you have faith. وَلَا تُؤْمِنُوا حَتَّى تَحَابُوا. And your faith can never be complete unless you mutually love one another. Love is a cornerstone of the teaching of divine religion. And therefore, take the message back to Palestine, Reverend, that Masjidul Quds and the Muslims of South Africa are one with you. And therefore we salute our government, and we have members of our government here, Majid Mauser and many of them. Our government had the guts to take Israel to the International Court of Justice and suit of following other countries in our footsteps to make sure that the illegitimate state of Israel, the apartheid state of Israel, will pay for its crimes. No one will escape justice. Even if you think you get away with murder in this world, there is an inevitable day of judgment in the divine Supreme Court of God Almighty. May Allah bless you, may Allah preserve you, may Allah grant victory to the Mujahideen, the people of Palestine, and we hope as South Africans that soon we will be able to travel there, visit Gaza, visit Palestine, visit Masjidul Aqsa and pray there. And I have fond memories of visiting the Holy Church in Bethlehem. I was there for 12 years consecutively, taking people to visit Palestine. And I've listened and seen and observed how my Christian brethren are praying, and I felt so close with them, so close, because we love Jesus and we believe in him and in all the prophets. Thank you very much for honoring us and gracing us with your presence, and likewise to all the members of the clergy and our lady clergies at the back as well. All our guests, Brother Derek, mashallah, thank you very much for being here. Because of the brevity of time, Isha is basically upon us. I cannot allow any questions, but I'm sure while the Reverend is still here, you may interact with him or with his entourage, inshallah. Shukran very much, Dr. Imtiaz Sulaiman. And I think Mr. Sattar Parker has a very important announcement. I would allow him to say that, please.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Good evening. Reverend, I think this will be the most happiest day of your life. We've just heard on all the wires internationally that the might of Hamas has brought about a ceasefire. It's been confirmed on BBC, Al Jazeera, and all the networks of the world. And we remember as South Africans, because there was a time when these very colonialists, before 1994, used to call our liberation movement terrorist organizations. And ultimately, they had to deal with the so-called terrorist organizations. And today, Hamas has proven to the world that when you stand for what is right, eventually, no matter how small you are, but if your principles are with you, you will never go wrong. So today, Reverend, today I see you are just confirming it. It's a very, very important day for all of us. Too much blood has been shed in that part of the world, and may this be an occasion where we will eventually find solution. And for us here at this mosque, Reverend, I know that's great news, but I just want to share with you that we have been established for 35 years. And from the outset, we took a decision. It's dark now, but if you come here during the day, we have flags flying of Palestine, and they're all flying half-mast. And sooner than later, when the people of Palestine receive their freedom, we would like you to come here, back here, and bring one of these flags up to full mast, inshallah. Thank you very much.
At the outset, I forgot to announce that the man that's keeping the aid going to Gaza, the man that's looking after Palestine, the man that's flying from South Africa to Egypt to Turkey to meet with the South African government embassy in Egypt, to meet with the Egyptian Red Crescent, to meet with Egyptian state security, to meet with Egyptian imams, to go to the border of Rafah. Dr. Malik is here. It's a remarkable nation, this. Dr. Malik was about to get married in Palestine. The week before he got married many years ago, the Israelis struck and killed his wife-to-be. No anger, no vengeance, no hatred. And in many cases, said a lot of Jews have been good to him. And we need to understand, as the Reverend said, this is not a religious war. This is about us standing together as brothers and humanity. We got bad and good on both sides of all religions. And we need to stand together as a common humanity. And we've coined a concept called the coalition of good, where good from all people, from all religions, faith and unfaith, stand together for the purpose of humanity. Reverend, thank you very much for your kind words. And yes, we all look forward to visiting you in Bethlehem one day, at Masjidul Aqsa and Bethlehem. I've been there. I've taken media there in 2002 when Aziz Pahad and I traveled to visit Arafat. So, thank you very much. And I'm sure this prayer will also be answered. Thank you very much.
Imtiaz, we are saying to you today that when the borders of Gaza are open, we all want to be going. We all want to go there, and we all want to help build our Gaza.
Inshallah. Yes, we will, inshallah. Amin. Together with the gift of the givers, Masjidul Quds will be in the forefront to rebuild Gaza, inshallah. Amen. Last time I mentioned it in the Jummah, some people ask, where's Sheikh Alexander going to get the money from? The good news is we have the money. The bad news is it's still in your pockets. So inshallah, we are going to get there, inshallah. Finally, I will call upon our chairperson of the executive committee, Brother Abdullah Muhammad, to just deliver the vote of thanks. And then I'm going to ask my honorable colleague, the Sheikh Riyad Fattar, the president of the MJC, to close with the dua, inshallah.
Shukran, Sheikh. There's been a request that our reverend guest has to leave immediately. So we just respect that. There's another function that he needs to go to. So can we just all revert to allowing our guests to leave? I just want to hand over a gift to Reverend Munther Isaac. It's a history of Masjidul Quds. It talks about the apartheid days of trying to get a masjid in this area when there were other masajids in the area, but the vision of the forefathers that got the masjid up and running was that eventually there's going to be a need for a masjid here. So this talks through that history and even more. So we'd like to hand over as a gift of thanks to Reverend a copy of our book.
Al-Fatiha. Before I start with the dua, we must have free, free Palestine. Free, free Palestine. Free, free Palestine. From the river to the sea. Palestine will be free. From the river to the sea. Palestine will be free. Takbir! 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 Al-Fatiha. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين سيدنا ونبينا ومولانا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين اللهم إنا نسألك العفو والعافية والمعافاة الدائمة في الدين والدنيا والآخرة والفوز بالجنة والنجاة من النار اللهم حبب إلينا الإيمان وزينوا في قلوبنا وكره إلينا الكفر والفسوق والعصيان واجعلنا من الراشدين اللهم انصر المسلمين اللهم انصر الفلسطينيين اللهم انصر الفلسطينيين اللهم انصر المظلومين ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا واغفر لنا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد النبي الأمي وعلى آله وأصحابه وبارك وسلم رب اغفر وارحم وأنت خير الراحمين.